Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadare Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranam devotees. So I wanted to take a little time this morning to go over. This really was not from a question and answer session, but it was actually a very nice discussion I had with my good wife regarding a verse from the Bhagavad Gita and a kind of epiphany that took place around greatly understanding why and how it is that it is possible to be in the practice of bhakti for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years and not really taste the essential inner moods of bhakti. What would be an obfuscation to that, especially if the practice itself is steady practice in terms of the sadhana, like rising during Brahma Muhurta hours, chanting the fixed number of rounds prescribed for you by your Gurudev, also chanting your given Guru Diksha mantras, etc. Dandavat Sadhan Siddha Prabhu. So doing all of the things that are required in the practice of bhakti, how would it be that even with a significant tenure in bhakti, still the taste of the inner moods of bhakti don't arise in the heart? What could cause that? So obviously, if using the analogy of a doctor, if a doctor was, spiritual doctor, was examining the circumstance, there might be a diagnosis that certainly there may be some aparad in chanting Sri Nam. Because Nam is the foundational principle of the practice of sadhana. It is from Nam Kirtan that we develop Smaran. Smaran is the essential ingredient in the path of Rag Marg, and Rag Marg is the essential methodology for obtaining the object of our worship. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's made clear, Sakale Jagate Mori Vari Bhakti, Vairi Bhakti Brajbal Payati Nai Shakti. So to obtain the moods of the inhabitants of Braj, and of course our Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Vargas, they have established the upasan, means the worship, of the deity of Radha and Krishna, Gaura Nitai, in some cases Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, but all of these are connected to the mood of Braj. The very rare installations of Sita, Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman were strictly a matter of preaching endeavors, such as in Bombay or maybe other temples in which the deity of Sita Ram was established. So the primary worship in our Gaudiya line is the worship of Mahaprabhu Radha Krishna Yugal, and that being the case, according to this verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is not possible to obtain the mood which is held by the inhabitants of Vrindavan by the process of Vaidhi Bhakti. I've explained before that the practice of Raganuga Bhakti is not void of Vidhi. Vidhi means rules and regulations. Shravanam Kirtanandani Vaidhi Bhakti Sudanti tu. So it's made clear in Sastra that the practice of the Vidhi, such as Guru Padasraya, the other Angas of Bhakti, the daily sadhana practices like rising during Brahma Muhurta hours, etc., they're not absent in the practice of Rag Marg. Only the determination to obtain a specific sadhya, means a particular goal based on the sadhana, is what is different. So it is not that the external appearance of the activities may be different, but the internal pursuit is certainly different. If a person is strictly practicing Vaidhi Marg, then it is geared towards attainment of service in Vaikuntha. However, if one wants to worship Sri Radha Krishna, which is the deities established by Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Vargas in general, then this means the path is the path of Rag Marg. Prior to eligibility for executing the main angas of Rag Marg properly, meaning Smaran, then it is called Raganuga Pravritti. It is a progressive path of purification towards being able to truly, in earnest, take up the practice of Rag Marg. So Jiva Goswami Pad in his Bhakti Sandarbha, he's mentioned that. Pratamam nam nam shravanam sudha antakaran artam apeksham. By first taking up the practice in sincerity of chanting Nam and avoiding the offenses to Nam, then the antakaran means the subtle body, the mind, the intelligence, and the false egoism can become purified. Sudha antakaran artapeksham. The antakaran means that subtle body can become purified. Then shravanena rupa tat udaya yogyatva bhavati. That allows a organic rising of the aspired goal of the practitioner to start to manifest on the chitta. Right? So without that purification, that does not take place. So as long as there's offenses to Sri Nam, then in many cases, this will be the principle that obfuscates the ability to access the deeper moods of bhakti and have some resonance with our practice and the acquisition of those moods. So in Bhagavad Gita, the verse that was under discussion by myself and my wife this morning, which we found extremely interesting, is Tatra Sattvam Nimalatvat Prakasham Anumayam Shukha Sangena Bhadnati Jnana Sangena Cha Anagaha. So Anagaha means, O sinless person. And the commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Pad in his Sararthavarsinitika on this verse, his commentary in Bhagavad Gita, is very interesting. So he addresses, Shri Krishna addresses Arjuna here as Anagaha. Anagaha means, O sinless one. Aga means sin. So, O sinless person. Those persons who have become attached to the material mode of sattva gun, the material mode of goodness, they are bound and conditioned by two factors. Sukha sangena bhadnati. It means by a sense of happiness in the material mode of goodness, and jnana shukkena cha, and also a knowledge that because I am situated in the mode of goodness, then I have a better standing than others. So from that also arises a sense of pride. So let me develop it as Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is describing it. So he's saying that because of the resonance and the easy access when one is living a mode of goodness lifestyle, then the material taste that comes from the mode of sattva gun, the material mode of sattva gun, then one becomes conditioned by that happiness. But looking at the predominance of others who may be in the modes of passion and ignorance, a person feels a sense of elevation based on that seeing other people in the mode of passion and ignorance. So one considers, my situation is better. Why? Sattvam nirmalatvat. Because sattva gun, by activity, by consciousness, and everything else, is better than the mode of passion and ignorance. Also, prakasham. It gives illumination. But here, prakasham here doesn't mean spiritual illumination. It means it illumines the difference between passion and ignorance and goodness. And therefore, anamayam. It gives a sense of well-being to those who are situated in the mode of goodness. It also seems to take away any kind of anxiety or agitation, of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying, and therefore it makes one feel better situated than those in the mode of passion and ignorance. As I mentioned, as a result of that as well, a kind of pride arises due to being well situated. And jnana sangena cha, what kind of knowledge evolves from conditioning by the mode of material goodness? The sensibility that I realize that the material world and the spiritual realm, or the Atma and the material energy, are different. So here it does not mention that this is a state of realization. It mentions that the knowledge that the material world and the Atma are different. So almost universally, anyone who's taken up the practice of bhakti, the ABCs of bhakti, that we are not this body, that the material world is a separated energy of God, and the combination of the Atma with the material world is a cause of suffering, is sort of the base plate of everybody who's come into the process of bhakti. What happens is that when the dominant pursuit revolves around that understanding, and there's a natural taste coming from the material mode of goodness, right? Sukha sangena bhadnati, and one becomes bound by that, it becomes very difficult to consider a deeper sense of saranagati. Or it may exclude real saranagati altogether. Because real saranagati is the sensibility of having given up everything regarding the particular material upadi we have, that means our material karmic iteration we may be living in now, and also the sense of false egoism that bolsters and nourishes that material upadi. This is what's mentioned in the verse, Sava upadi vinaya muktam tatpat vena nirmalam Rishikesha Rishikena sevanam bhakti uchyate. That the giving up of all material upadis is the state of liberation, and recognizing that everything, all my senses, everything, belong to the seva of Rishikesh, the master of the senses, Shri Krishna Bhagavan. So, in this particular state of being bound by the material mode of goodness and the happiness derived from that, it becomes difficult to let that go without a certainty of what lies ahead in the depth of a deeper sense of surrender. Right? So what is surrender? Surrender actually has three phases. One is called prapatti. Prapatti is the intentional desire to act on the platform of recognizing I am the servant of Krishna, and I want to anukulyasya sankalpa, do everything favorable to that ideal. Pratikulyasya vivarjanam, reject anything unfavorable to that ideal. Rakshashiti vishwas, have a firm conviction, the same kind of conviction, I've explained this before. The word swash in Sanskrit also means to breathe. So to have a conviction similar to the conviction I have, even though I don't know, but I have a conviction that yes, I'll take my next breath. To have that same kind of conviction, Rakshashiti, that Krishna is my protector. So here, even when we say Rakshashiti, the actual Raksha, or Krishna's protection, is protection of your giving and making yourself absolutely vulnerable by full surrender. So it may be expanded to understand Krishna is also protecting us in terms of our physical bodies and so forth and so on. But whether that plays out or not, the real import of Rakshashiti is Krishna's protecting bhakti and the aspiration for bhakti in that person. Therefore, no matter what happens to this material body, whatever bhakti is obtained cannot be lost unless there's the commission of aparad. Nihabra kamana shosti pratyavayo navidyate swa alpam apyasha dharmasha trayate mato bhyat. We should not fear anything will be lost by all of our endeavors in bhakti. So Rakshashiti Vishwas, I have a firm conviction that Krishna is my protector on the path of bhakti. The reason this becomes important in doing actual applied saranagati is because until and unless we let go of the tendency to protect our own sensibilities, including our sensibility of happiness, even that happiness born from the mode of goodness, we are not truly surrendered. True surrender means I'm giving up even the considerations of the happiness derived from the material mode of goodness. And goptrave varanam tata, how I will be maintained. And maintained here doesn't just mean the external application, but it means the internal application of how my spiritual pursuit and my spiritual consciousness, How will all of that be maintained? By Shri Krishna. The agency of Shri Krishna, Saksharahitvena, Shamasta Shastriya. All Shastras declaring the agency of that in this world is Shri Guru. So having the full faith to do that kind of surrender, then Atma Nikshep, Karpanya. Atma Nikshep means my Atma. I'm considering that everything that I consider about my existence, I'm surrendering all of that. Because the preceding steps of surrender lead to now having some understanding of your Atma. Can you give your Atma completely? That requires the ultimate sense of vulnerability, Atmanikshepa Karpanya, a sense of humility. This is the importance of the third verse of Shishashtakam, Chenadapi Sunich. Becoming lower than the grass, it means I'm going to the deepest level of my vulnerability by giving myself fully and wholly at the mercy, based on Shraddha, on faith, to the lotus feet of Shri Guru and Shri Mahaprabhu Radha Krishna. So this depth of Saranagati is very difficult. And one of the last obfuscations to it is mentioned in this verse. Because as soon as we begin to taste the reciprocation which comes from the material mode of nature, the material mode of goodness, right? We then think, this is good. I'm happy now. So this is also called Arop Siddha Bhakti. Bhakti can be of three kinds: Arop Siddha Bhakti, Sanga Siddha Bhakti, and Swarup Siddhi Bhakti. Swarup Siddhi Bhakti means the actual process of Shravan, Kirtan, Vishnu Smaran, Pada Sevan, and everything I have, everything I aspire for is all invested in that process. There's nothing else that will be able to actually satisfy my desire except the engagement in the Shravan, Kirtan, Vishnu Smaran. And I'm giving myself the space of vulnerability at the lotus feet of Shri Guru and Bhagavan, that any reciprocation that will come from that, that is my status, that I am fully surrendered to you. You understand? Even without expectation, because as the maturation in bhakti comes, there's not even expectation of remuneration for what it is we're surrendering. This is the meaning of Sava Dhamma Parityajya Mam Ekam Saranam Raj. Mam Ekam Saranam. Ekam means to the one-pointed ideal. Anya Abhilasita Sunya. Jnana Karma Adi Anavritam. Not covered by any sense of remuneration coming from Gyan leading to liberation, or Karma leading to pious activities like Artha, wealth, calm, etc., etc. You understand? So one-pointed, no sense of remuneration, only the desire, Anukulyena Krishnanusiranam. All the endeavors only for Krishna's happiness. You understand? The word Anukul has some different import, but I'm not getting into that here. Right? So the mode of material goodness, unfortunately, and it happens a lot to devotees over the course of their practice, that they begin to think, I hear about these very deep moods of bhakti, about what it means to become even to the stage of ruchi, and then to become absorbed, and then the stage of a shakti, and bhav seems so far away, who has bhav, etc., etc. So this kind of contemplation leads to an idea, I'm already nicely situated. That is the material mode of goodness aligned or in liaison with the false egoism saying, yes, don't worry about it. Don't try to go any deeper. You're good right here. And if you stay in this position and you can tolerate and allow this to play out till you die, oh, then you'll go back to Godhead. And then sometimes Srila Prabhupada or any acharya will be quoted, yes, I guarantee you, I will take you back to Godhead. So then we kind of fall into Krishna consciousness Christianity. That Sri Guru has come, and like Jesus Christ, like a savior, and even Jesus Christ had never said necessarily he would take people back to the kingdom of God. He said he would remove sins. By the removal of sins, it would allow you to develop the practice of loving God, which will take you to the kingdom of God. So sometimes we misconstrue that every person is entitled to Kripa Siddhi. Kripa Siddhi is a very rare thing. Sadhan Siddhi is the norm. You understand? Therefore, the process has been given. The acharyas have demonstrated the process in their acharya lila. So this is the norm. So we have to operate on what is normative, not what's exceptional. And if something exceptional happens, then that becomes the icing on top of our cake. You understand? So, in this regard, what happens is that devotees are practicing, and because of the easy access, because it's still within the modes of nature, to the resonance coming from the material mode of goodness, the devotee becomes, it says, badhnati, conditioned or bound by it. And you'll see what happens almost inevitably is the devotee begins to act out a mixture. This is called aropsita bhakti. I was explaining. Aropsita bhakti means a sort of assigning of the backdrop of bhakti to the material activities in the mode of goodness. This is when you find devotees taking shelter to some degree, or feeling there's a necessity of utilizing the tools of many of the modalities that are presented in the mode of goodness. I can't count how many sort of material mode of goodness modalities are presented. There's this kind of seminar, that kind of seminar, this kind of healing, that kind of trauma, mental trauma healing. Now, there's certainly a difference between an actual medical condition, right, which may be something psychological or maybe a combination of things in which actual medical professional help may be sought. But there's a difference between that and taking shelter of various modalities in the mode of goodness as a comfort zone with the backdrop of bhakti in lieu of pursuing the depth of bhakti and the depth of saranagati or surrender to accomplish that. Unfortunately, when that becomes also a kind of consensus among many devotees, then it starts to become a sort of thing that's proselytized as being equated with Swarup-Siddha Bhakti or pure Bhakti practice, and it enters into the Vaishnav Mandal as part of everything as though it is actually Bhakti. Let me repeat that. So sometimes a particular practice is picked up. You'll see a seminar for healing your childhood trauma. You understand? To make it easier for you to pick up the practice of bhakti. But a question has to arise here. If bhakti is absolute, how is it possible that within the context of the practice of bhakti itself, it doesn't have the element to heal that childhood trauma? Now again, I'm separating those who are undergoing some actual chronic or any dynamic mental health condition or emotional condition. So I'm separating that out. I'm talking about, for instance, there are many forums under which devotees get together and they will discuss their particular problems. So there's a myriad of those. So I'm not going into a particular grouping of problems, but devotees get together and they talk about all the different emotional problems, this problem, that problem, and then even in Ishtagosis will be all the problems of the Sangha and the different details of who's going through what. And then there's always a call for a kind of radical open honesty. So everybody open your heart and reveal all of your problems, your shortcomings, your struggles in bhakti. And by doing that, somehow or another, it will be advantageous somehow or another to helping you progress in bhakti. But then we see that this has to be done monthly because there's always a call for it. So there's a different kind of seminar or the same seminar that's put on over and over and over and over and over again, right? So the reason for that is, in a very subtle way, the most subtle form of I and myness are present. Because if the center of discussion can be around I, and then the myness is the sensibility of those who I'm talking to, they're of like mind, so they're in the category of myness as far as my false egoism is concerned, and we can exchange a sensibility of having an exaggerated feeling of empowerment coming from the mode of material goodness to heal each other. And this particular modality, and I'm not talking about Rupa Goswami is also recommended. Didati Pratagrinati Guyam Akyati Prichati. So what is Guyam Akyati Prichati? Guyam here means what you realized in bhakti, the sharing of Harikatha. It doesn't mean the sharing of simply problems and anxieties and so forth and so on. This is not to say that one cannot sit and talk to a devotee and explain, oh Prabhuji, Didi, Mataji, I've been having some struggles lately. This one-to-one, in earnest, revelation is also Guyamakyati Prichati. But the arrangement of a formal modality that purports to be able to deal with this by the practice itself is really a divestment of faith from the actuality of the power of bhakti to do everything. Bhakti follows the nature of our Shraddha. Shraddha Anusari it's called. And what does Shraddha mean? The very weakest part of Shraddha, which first comes into the consciousness of the jiva, Ado Shraddha, is Shraddha Anupayini Brajam Bhakti Unmukhi Chitta Vritti Vishesh. The power, what power is there in Shraddha that's so deep that what you could not accomplish on your own, right? Since Anadikal, you could not break your inextricable absorption in material energy. It's called Abhinavesh. You could not break that. But a little faith coming from the heart of a sadhu allowed you to break that and turn your chitta vrittis towards the highest ideal in bhakti. How much potency is even in the weakest element of faith? When that faith grows and you remain embroiled in that faith, hearing in that faith, Shraddha Shabde Vishwashikohe Shudrida Nishchaya Bhakti what is this? Shraddha Shabde Vishwashikohe Shudrida Nishchaya. Oh, Krishna Bhakti Koili Savakam Kritta Hoy. Krishna Bhakti Koili Savakam Kritta Hoy. Everything can be accomplished by that faith in Sri Krishna, Hari, Guru and Vaishnava. That full investment based in Saranagati, it opens the portal, opens the doors to the mercy, the Kripa Shakti of Bhakti Devi. And then a person can begin to experience some of the inner moods regarding what is aspired for when we took up the practice in the first place. But if a person becomes complacent, anamayam, with the mode of material goodness, and remain satisfied, prakasham, that I know the difference between the body and the material energy, and I'm better situated than those in the mode of passion and ignorance. And in fact, some touch of Guru Abhiman can come because I feel I can help them, I can teach them, I can heal them. You understand? And so all these things combine together and it obfuscates the depth of surrender to realize what is the inner moods of bhakti. So this is a very, very important verse, and I would suggest devotees go in and read it, including Srila Prabhupada's purport, because he also in the second paragraph starts to describe how this conditions a person. And our whole objective in bhakti is to become unconditional, to express unconditional love. So we have to put full investment of faith in the process of bhakti. Bhakti practice is not different from bhakti. Bhaktya sanjatyaya bhaktya. Bhakti comes from bhakti. So we have to have full faith and commitment that all I really need is this bhakti. That there is no other protocol, there is no other methodology that would give me the things I need to obtain bhakti. Only bhakti itself. Bhaktya sanjatya bhaktya. Of the 9 yogindras, Prabodha was telling this to Maharaj Nimi. You only need to depend itself on pure bhakti. Don't think that anything else will be necessary. Understand? So actually that slok, what is, I'm going to read that slok. Paraspara katanam anukantanam katanam pavana bhagavat yasyaha. So he's saying, paraspara, in Sanskrit, paraspara means mutually nourishing. So it is mutually nourishing to yourself and to others, anukatanam, to continuously repeat kata. What kind of kata? Pavanam bhagavat yasyaha, the glories of Bhagavan, which are completely purifying. Mitorati mitastushti. Then, Rati for Bhagavan will come. And when Rati for Bhagavan is developing, then mitas tushti, one genuinely becomes satisfied, happy. It's not coming from the material mode of goodness, it's coming from Suddha Sattva. It means from Swarup Shakti, the internal energy of Bhagavan. This happiness is different from the happiness coming from the material mode of goodness. Then it says, Nivritti Mita Atmanaha, all problems, all obstacles, Nivritti Mita Atmanaha, are taken away from the Atma. Therefore, one can actually take up in earnest the practice of Raganuga Sadhan. Smaranta Smarantyantascha Mito Aga Oga Haram Harim. This is a very sweet verse because it's saying Smaranta Smarantyantascha, by constant remembrance for yourself and in the company of others, Mito Aga Oga Haram. So Aga means sinful life, like I expressed in the original verse we spoke. Anagaha means that Arjuna was sinless. So it's saying here, Mito Aga Oga. Oga here means not only sin, but the tendency to commit sin based on the trail of karmic unfoldment that comes from previous sins. So you know the karma works as Kut, Bij, Aparabdha, and Parabdha. So Kut means the tendency to commit karmic activities, whether it's V-karmic activities, or akarmic, not akarma, but V-karmic activities, or Punya-karmic activities, pious activities. They create a trail. So there's a tendency, it gives rise to a seed, which becomes a desire to perform a particular action. Once you perform that action, the results of that action doesn't always manifest immediately. It is called aparabdha. Then when you begin to experience the actual reaction for whatever it is you did, punya karma or vikarma means sinful activity, that is called parabdha karma. You understand? So it's saying here, aga oga haram. Both the sins committed and the tendency to commit more sins and the reactions thereof, haram, harim. Bhagavan takes them all away. Haram means to steal them away. Harim, Hari does this. Bhaktya sanjatya bhaktya, the verse I was just quoting regularly, or this phrase of the verse. Biprati utpalakam tanum. Then all of the true happiness, which comes from Swarup Shakti, which comes from the Antaranga Shakti of Bhagavan, from Bhakti itself, Bhaktya sanjatya bhaktya, biprati utpalakam tanum. You'll see that even the nature of the happiness that's derived is so overwhelming, it not only rises in the internal consciousness, but it manifests on the body as various astasattvic vikar, etc., etc. Of course, that is a very high state, you understand? But the teaching here is that our investment of faith in the pure, uncontaminated Suddha Sattva is the actual practice of bhakti. Right? Just like we're practicing sadhana bhakti. The sadhana of bhakti practice is meant to achieve a sadhya. That sadhya is called bhav. So it's explained by Rupa Goswami Pad. Kriti sadhya bhavat sadhya bhavasa sadhanabhida nitya sirisha bhavasa prakritamriti sadhyata. The nature of sadhana bhakti means the engagement of the senses in the activities of bhakti and subsidized by bhakti to obtain a sadhya, a goal. What is that goal? Bhav. What kind of bhav? A nitya siddha bhav, or a bhav which resides in the heart of the nitya parikars of Bhagavan. So if one has aspiration to serve like Subal or Shridam, then the nitya siddha bhav of Sakya Rasa or Priyanama Sakya Rasa, that bhav we're praying will enter the heart. This is called Seva Avishta. And this mood of Seva Avishta doesn't come in perfection. It comes in aspiration. Abhist means a desire. So this is to be desired now, not later. You understand? So therefore, our practice has to be imbued with a sambandha, with an identification, a relation with the aspiration for that kind of mood. Or, in particular in our line, to follow Sri Rup Manjari. You understand? And by following Sri Rup Manjari, all the moods of Sri Rup Manjari, may they enter into my consciousness through my Guru Parampara, and may I obtain in my siddhi, in my perfection, a mood like that and a form like that to serve Radha and Krishna in the mood of Palyadasi Bhav or Manjari Bhav. You understand? So this is the actual practice. And when these things start to become lost, and unfortunately over the period of time, either for lack of zeal to study deeply the writings of our Goswamis and even our Srila Prabhupada, and in many cases because of institutional control. So this is one of the drawbacks around institutional control, is that the institutional control sets the bar for what is to be accomplished by everyone in that institution. You understand? And what I mean by that is that the institution starts to set a ceiling on what is discussable among devotees. In other words, topics about bhav, raga, nuga, so forth, if those are frowned upon in the general social body in an institution, then those things will become suppressed and eventually they'll become weakened due to lack of earnest inquiry and solid answers. And then what will happen is that they'll be dismissed in favor of what is accessible, which is the mode of goodness. So there'll be many conversations, even in the presence of Guru, because you get to see Guru so very rarely, right, in many cases. And when you do see Guru, then if there is a kind of suppression of the mood to inquire about these deeper aspects of bhakti, and even if a person is not ready, Guru should be able to temper the answer in such a way it inspires a person to continue practicing to come to an adhikar where it is a suitable question for them. But simply shutting them down or creating an atmosphere in which the question becomes irrelevant, that sends a message to everyone else: stay under the ceiling, right? The institutional ceiling of advancement. You understand? So that can be in any institution. I'm not criticizing any particular institution. I'm saying in general, right? Any sangha, any institution in which that takes place, it is a little, not a little bit, but it is completely unhealthy. I was trying to be tempered in my words, but no, it's completely unhealthy, right? Because it will not foster growth, nor will it create practice of bhakti by inspiration, but it'll be bhakti by intimidation. You understand? And then what you'll have to do is you'll have to give superficial praise to those who toe the institutional lines and make it seem normative to only want to deal with bhakti in this mode of material goodness. So you reward them by appreciating how they're serving. They're not asking these deep kind of questions. They're just serving. Also, I do remember distinctly for some time, anytime devotees ventured into a more in-depth study of the writings of our Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas, then there was a sort of tagging of them as, oh, they're Gyanis, that's okay. They're just into Gyan. So the codifying of devotees in that way made it seem that if you take to the process of a deep study to try to understand these things and to be in a suitable position to inquire about these things, then you were among those who are just Gyani. So what does that mean in relation to those who are glorified as being truly practicing bhakti? Because bhakti is a thing of the heart. Bhakti is a thing of the heart, but it's not a thing of the material mode of goodness conception of the heart. Because in the material mode of goodness, the false ego is still present in the heart. So it's a matter of the Hridaya Mandir in transcendence, the heart temple in the position of transcendence. Bhakti is a facility of that. It's not a facility of the mundane mode of goodness understanding of my heart and false egoism. You understand? And the only way that that's going to be transcended is if there is a deep connection between sadhu and aspirant, and the process of inquiry can take place. Tajmat gurum prapadeta jigyasyo shreyottamam tadviri paripatena apariprashnena sevaya. Right? Upadakshanti te gyanam gyaninas tatpadarshana tadviri pranipatena pariprashna. Deep inquiry. Shukdev Goswami made deep inquiry. Maharaj Parikshit made deep inquiry to Shukdev Goswami. Sutta Goswami also listened carefully, and therefore he received deep inquiry from the sages headed by Sonika. Vyasadeva made deep inquiry to Nard Muni. Mahaprabhu himself demonstrates by making deep inquiries to Sri Ramananda Roy on the bank of Godavari. Ho Ramananda Samvad. Everything from the ABCs of Varnashram Dharma to Prem Vilas Vivart is discussed in Ramananda Samvad. You understand? So this is all based on inquiry. So the inquiry has to be inspired. And it will become inspired by Paraspara Hari Namanukirtanam. By the continual mutual nourishment of doing Hari Katha. So I wanted to bring this up because it was a very nice discussion. After our Southern Bhajan in the morning, sometimes me and my wife have discussions about various things we're studying or whatever. And so I mentioned to her during my Swadhyay earlier this morning, I had read this verse and reading the Tika of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and then our Srila Prabhupada also had read the purport before reading the Tika. It just was so illuminating. And it gave rise to understanding why many devotees become attracted and therefore, even unintentionally or unconsciously, divest their faith from the absolute process to something which is a aropsiddha process. Aropa, again, I mentioned, is the sort of what we commonly in the devotee community call dovetailing. Right? It's called aropsiddha bhakti. So the backdrop of bhakti is there, but you assign whatever it is that your interest is to bhakti. Right? Or you try to assign some quality of bhakti to whatever it is you're interested in. It's called aropsiddha bhakti. So hopefully this was helpful to others also. I mean, I'm speaking these things for my own edification always, but hopefully there's some resonance with others and they will understand the importance of differentiating the mode of material goodness, right, from actually the internal pure mode of goodness, which is called Suddha Sattva, not Misra Sattva. In the mode of pure goodness is where Bhagavan becomes revealed. You understand? Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Sabditam. In this verse it mentions Bhagavan becomes apavrita, uncovered. So this is the real meaning of the mode of goodness. Sattvam Vishuddham. Right? Because when Bhav descends, Suddha Sattva Visesh Atma. Suddha Sattva Visesh Atma. Prem Suyangsa Samya Bhavuchi Vishya Tamasanya Kriso Bhavuchite. So this is our aspired for goal. This Suddha Sattva. Alright, I think I will end here. My Dandavat to many devotees on. Jai Shri Krishna Balav, Jai Hari Bol Didi. Many other devotees who I saw come on. Alright, Vancha Kalpa Turuvesha, Kripa Shindavevacha, Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. Jai Radhe Radhe.